Welcome to the conversation. I know that you were expecting to see Pastor Sola, but my name is Susan Bello. Pastor Sola isn't here tonight. He's only here in a different way. He's here through his better half, the delectable Pastor Comfort Adesoye. Hello, Pastor Comfort.
Hi, Susan. It's good to be here.
And welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Now, because of today's topic, can I call you Mom? Can I say hello, Mom?
Feel free.
All right, tonight on the conversation, we're talking about parenting responsibilities, restoring family values, and moral decency in this social media era. There's only one person that can blow this topic out of the water, and she is a seasoned parenting coach. Her name is Wendy Ologe, and she's the author of so many bestsellers on parenting. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a parenting academy until I read up about her. And guess what? She has also represented Africa at the Facebook Global Parenting Panel. I didn't even know there was something like that. So welcome tonight on the conversation, the lovely, amazing, and full of life,
yes,
Wendy Ologe.
Thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for making the time to be here. I know that your schedule is packed to the brim, but you made it for us. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, when I was looking at your profile, I know that you're a mother of 3 lovely children, and you only started this parenting journey like 3 years ago. But look what you've done. Facebook, like representing Africa at the Facebook Parenting Forum. What on earth was that? And before we go there, I really need to find out. Like Pastor Comfort, just recently, like a few months ago, I had to open like a number of additional social media handles. So I was back on Twitter, I was on Instagram, and then Facebook was there. Okay. And I cannot keep up the pace. And I'm seeing like the young ones. I know that I belong to Generation X, and you do too.
Yeah, exactly.
You are not in the baby boomers club. You are in Generation X, and I could not keep up. And I'm like wondering, see all the Gen Y and Gen Z guys running things. How's your social media life?
Oh, please don't go there. Social media and myself don't mix. You know, I just get there. I just barely get there to keep communication, keep in touch with people. I'm more a people person. I'm not a social media person.
All right. So, Wendy, I know that your case is different. For you to be on the forum for Facebook representing Africa, this was like the end of 2019. So, what's social media like for you?
So social media is work for me.
A lot of work.
It's work. So I get on social media, for me, it's work. It's not fun. So I don't find myself scrolling through to just go see what's happening. Anytime I am really scrolling through, I'm looking for, what I can do as regards work. So for me, that's what social media has become over the years. Well, in the past 3-4 years, maybe before then, I could try a bit. My husband and I would live a private life, but I guess sometimes your private life don't work really.
Yeah, especially because of the kind of work that you do, coaching parents, and you run the Intentional Parent Academy. So, I mean, a lot of times people will think, okay, you're only a parent when you go through the biological process of, conceiving a child or bringing forth a child. What is parenting really, from your perspective, being an expert on the matter?
So whenever I get asked this question, because people say parenting is about having a child, or the person who has, given birth to someone, parenting is a verb, it's not a noun. So parenting is a doing word. If you're not doing, then you're not a parent. So you can actually give birth to a child. And, there was something that I was reading in the scriptures that talks about children, your parents and all of that. There was a distinct about your father and your mother. And then there was a distinct with parents. So it means that the people who are parenting are the ones that should be obeyed. So you can be, he said, honor your father and your mother, and then obey your parents. So why was that word parent used? So it means that I can parent you even though I am not your biological mother. We've played that role. My husband and I have raised the foster daughter who is currently married. And really, for her and for us, where we stood at her wedding, we were the ones that, have stood, so guided her. So for me, parent is beyond just coming up and just saying, "Oh, I just had a child." So it's a lot more than that.
I see that parenting is much more than just like going through biological, through the biological process of childbirth and child rearing. Now, before we go on, I must tell you that this is a topic that you must share with your friends. If you're a parent, if you're intending to become a parent, or if you know any parents really, start a Facebook watch party. Share the link on your WhatsApp status anywhere and everywhere, and spread the word. And of course, start generating the questions, because Wendy is here live and direct, and she will attend to your questions. So Pastor Comfort, I was going to ask you, like, from Wendy's perspective, parenting goes beyond the physical to much more to responsibilities. I know that at the Lighthouse, you are the head of, you're the director of ministries. So you're basically everyone's mom. So, so hi, mom. So for you, beyond just your physical children and the children that are underneath your care in your home, the spiritual aspect of parenting, how has that been for you?
It's been wonderful, because you find out that apart from adults who would want you to also mother them, you also have the real children who would want you also to mother them. And it's such a blessing, and so touching when at the end of every service you now have children rushing to your side, to hug you, to want to, just feel, and without, they're not saying much. They just want that connect, and they think you're doing it for them. No, you're doing it for us too, because it goes both ways. And talking about church and talking about parenting, you find out that I was, in a situation where we visited in a school, and a child was being scolded, and the parent was taken to the counselor, and the counselor was like, "Oh, ma'am, this is it. And she's like, "No, don't tell me. I know my child. But that's why I sent them to this type of school, so that you can correct them."
Oh, wow.
And we've also had such situations where, but that's why we send them to Sunday school, so that you can correct them. And so that's why you find out that, like she was saying, beyond just giving birth, you can parent a child you didn't give birth to. But I also think parents shouldn't relinquish their position for other establishments to raise.
True. And gauging that, the parents are going to start feeling, okay, so where do I succeed and where do I fail? And where do you really tell as a parent when you're failing? What are the signs? I think Pastor Comfort just, brought that in really nicely, like relegating the job to someone else. What are the other signs we should look out for to know that we're doing a good job or a bad job at parenting?
Okay, so I did a session recently on ineffective parenting. And there are several signs of ineffective parenting. One of them, it's lack of balance. Now, I see a lot of that in the Christendom, where all we want to teach our children is just tell them, "Oh, you just, for us." There's something that I say about raising godly children. So people say you raise godly children because they can read the Bible and they go to church, they can pray. But that's already a failed system. Because a godly child, the Bible says that godliness is profitable unto all things. So it simply means that if there is no profit in the other things, so there's something wrong with that kind of definition of what godliness is. So one of the things that I say when it comes to, raising children and, being effective is what is the balance? What is the structure? Now, I usually will say that, yes, we want to raise children who would affect the world, yet we want to raise children who want to shield from the world. How does that work? So we're constantly having children who, in quotes, know God, who can navigate their world. And of course, when they get into the world swallows them up because they do not even understand what the word, is. So balance is one of the most important, thing when it comes to parenting. You can't parent a child and you're saying, oh, my child is prayerful, but your child cannot socially interact. It's a problem.
It's a problem.
You can't raise a child who can socially interact and the child can't pray. It's a problem.
It's a problem.
You can't raise a child who can socially interact yet lack character, do not have the ability to even understand what sex conversations were, or cannot be emotionally stable. It is a problem. So one of the things that I preach is balance. Once you can understand balance, then you would understand what parenting is really about. Another thing that I also say is that parenting, like I said earlier, assumption in parenting is a killer. The moment you begin to assume that you know what you're doing, then you begin to run into some kind of issue, because I like the way that the scholars put it. Assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. Yes, you know it, but that is you assuming. And when you are at that point, it simply means that you're just at the point where you're assuming. So I say that parenting is a learned skill. You need to learn exactly what to do with your children to actually be there.
Exactly. And I think what is facing us today, especially looking at the topic that we have, is the role of social media. So that is pivotal to what we're discussing tonight, and it looks like it has taken over our lives. So what is social media doing to the moral values of our children? I know that you've been, you're professional, you've had to handle cases, you've given talks. What is there a pattern you have seen, and how is this linked to social media and the moral values that we need?
So unfortunately for us, we're having conversations and we're leaving out the kind of conversation that we should actually have. Now, we're not having conversations on tech management for our children. We're saying, no, don't go online. You can't. But they are online. So we're not having those conversations. So there is a gap. Now, we're now raising children who are now finding their way into the social media space without any guide. So they just fly into the social media space and they are all over the place. Now, our biggest challenge is that we're raising social media savvy children instead of tech savvy children. How many of those children who are on social media doing all of that can really do tech? What we have in the studio now. Not many of them. I was telling someone was asking me, oh, your children don't have phones. I said they don't need it, but they have laptops, because I want them to understand what tech can do for them. Now, it throws it back to the parents. Our responsibilities are so high, right? If you decide to become a parent today, then for me, it scares me. That's what I say. I'm usually scared when I remember that I'm a parent. It scares me. I have a set of twins that are 11. And when I look at them, sometimes I'm like, my goodness, is this me? As in, I have to do all of this and make sure that this happens and all of that. Beyond our children just turning out right, it's also us being able to become accountable to God that have entrusted us with these people. So when it comes to social media, there is a huge gap. And you see someone waking up and saying, my child just turned 13 and I just gave her an Apple phone as a gift.
Really?
Meanwhile, you haven't taught the child how to navigate the world in the social media space. What we're doing is akin to saying, my child just turned 18 and I bought her a car and I gave her the key and she didn't learn how to drive.
Exactly.
That's exactly what we're doing with the social media space with our children. So we can't continually, for me, I said, what do you need to do before you even hand your child over a gadget? It's beyond age. It's beyond age. So even if you have an 18-year-old who is using a gadget without you having to actually have had, the guide, then it's failed already. You need to actually be the guide. And what is that guide that you need to actually put through? That's the question. And that's where the lack of knowledge now comes in. What we should be doing.
I mean, that sounds like being a parent alone is enough work. knowing that you're responsible for all
True.
this. But
True.
what I hear is the family values, Pastor Comfort.
Yes.
So when you talk about the family values, is this something that is automatically created when you say I do? Or is it something you begin to work towards when you're planning to say I do, or it's afterwards? I know that you have counseled dozens of couples, who are leading successful married lives today. So where are we at with family values? Is this something we need to get right at the beginning, or after, like when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it? What's it like?
We get it right from the very beginning. From the very beginning, that's where we get it right. And this is where the scripture comes to light. Raise a child in the way that he should go. And when he grows, he will not turn from it.
Right.
Which also transposed on social media would help. Because when you train a child to, first of all, know values, let them see see why we call this wrong, see why we call this right. Throw it at them. Okay, so what do you think? Do you think this is okay? Or why do you think, even if they're wrong, try to find out from them why they think it's right. And then you guide them until you become very confident in their sense of value, able to audit everything that comes their way. Is it right and is it wrong? So that eventually when they find themselves in social media space, they also bring that upbringing to that space. Then they stumble on things in social media that are not palatable for their disposition. They're Christians, they're children of God. There's some things they should not engage on social media. It just pops up on the inside of them and they just navigate themselves away, And this is it, that with parenting, especially when you engage your children at all times, like this is what my children do, because we engage them in every way. When they stumble on something on social media that they know these are the kind of things we discuss in the family, they throw it on the family chat. So you know where they've been. They know what tickles everybody. So instead of wanting to be so much more exploratory about what they are discovering, they're like, oh, what is it I'm going to throw on the family chat that's going to get everybody laughing, everybody commenting, everybody, all trying to dive under the chair from fear of what has happened, And so what your children are doing. So even though you're not there, you have an idea because they're miles away, but on social media, they're still engaging you. Oh, this is what I got. This is what I didn't get. So when you train a child, it's almost like his north compass.
Right.
If it tries to sway to the left or sway to the right, somehow it finds its balance back, comes back to balance.
Right.
Exactly what you said.
Right. Oh, amazing. Now, before we go on, I'd like to encourage you to please start sending in your questions. Pastor Comfort is here, Wendy is here, and they're going to tackle it. All the questions you have ever wanted to ask about parenting, throw it right in, and they'll be here to deal with them. Now, Wendy, I'm going to ask you, because the times that we're in right now, blame it on the weather, blame it on the times, blame it on social media influencers. Who really is the culprit? Do you understand? Are we talking about the parents? Who should we hold responsible for this impact that social media is having on our children? Is it the social media influencers? Is it social media itself? Is it the times that we live in? Is it the parents or the children?
I actually like to look at social media as there are positives and there are negatives.
Exactly.
So if we come here and just say, oh, so social media, there's nothing, good about it, I wouldn't be here at all. So social media in itself was created for the positives. Now, there are a lot of things that come up, when you create whatever. Everybody is waiting to latch on it, create strategies, on it. One of the things that I'm usually pained about is that the world they're now creating strategies to use social media to actually get at the children. We are not.
Okay.
We are hoping. That's where the biggest challenge is. So parents are just hoping. I usually say that hope is not a parenting strategy.
Wow.
So parents are just hoping that, I'm just hoping and I'm praying. I know when parents say that, I'm praying thing, I feel a little bit, uncomfortable, because prayer is a responsibility of every parent. Why do you want to make prayer look as if you've done one big stuff? It's your responsibility. If you're giving a child, that means you are required to pray for your child. So when you make it a bragging right, I have a problem with that naturally. So it's not a bragging right. It's your responsibility. It's as good as saying, my children ate food 3 times today. That's what it means. That's what it's like. So we need to understand that the world is using strategies. Recently, I got to find out that pedophiles have trainings.
Wow.
So they have manuals and they do trainings. Yet parents are telling me that they don't need to go for trainings.
Wow.
Now that is the real problem that we have. So if you ask me to bring a pawn on the table, I'm probably going to bring the parents, because the parents we're just laid back. We're just saying to ourselves, this parenting thing, the world is working on strategies, serious strategies. People sit down to create how they can get at your children. They sit down to learn. They sit down to take notes. They sit down to print manuals. Somebody created that manual and posted it online, and people have access to it. Look at Satanism. Somebody is creating Satanism and putting it on Amazon. People are buying. What are we doing? Are we writing? Are we creating the content that will affect, the system?
To counter the system. Oh, wow. So in that case, how do we then as parents protect our children from the negative influence of social media?
One of the first things that we need to understand is that the world has changed. I usually like to use this example. Growing up, I'm a millennial child. So growing up, I didn't even see pornography. I couldn't. Because if you see, you get busted, because it's on a video CD. So a video CD, video cassette, what do they call it? And then you slot it in, they take lights. I live in Nigeria. So, hey, I grew up in Nigeria. So, of course, they take like that. That's the end of it. You're going to be caught. So your parents get home. So those checks were there. So you were a bit restrained that, something is going to happen. But, interestingly, in today's world, those restraints are no longer there. Even if your child is not on social media, they're going to sit. That's the point. So it's not really even about handing your child the phone or not. Your child will go, I counseled a 9-year-old who is a pastor's child. And, and I said, have you ever seen sex before? It was a conversation that, had molestation and all of that.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, I've seen sex before on the phone. Someone brought it to school. And she didn't see sex in the normal scene. She saw it with a dog, woman and a dog. So that is the scene that, our children are being created for. And then we're seeing these scenes are being passed to them. So I say that it's a tough time to be a child in the 21st century. It's also a tough time to be a parent, because there are too many things dragging your attention.
Yes.
But at the same time, we need to understand that is why we need to do more. So when we say things like, oh, my parents didn't have to learn how to parent, I say that this time gets you learning. You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. You need to learn what exactly is happening to your child. You need to learn what you can do. You need to learn. As these other people are taking courses, reading books, you need to learn. Your strategy can be based on hope.
Yes.
You need to be able to learn. And there's something my pastor says, Bishop David Oyedebo. He says that the truth is that the faith, any faith that gets God to do everything for you is an irresponsible thing.
Exactly.
So there is a part that you have to play, and we need to understand that part. And God never promised to parent our children for us. God only promised that He will protect and preserve them. He didn't promise to to parent them, because if He did, then the sons of Eli would have been perfect.
Exactly.
And if He did, David would have raised giants.
In fact, He left the responsibility of raising them to us. Yes, He did.
Yes.
He did.
He left us. It's
our responsibility.
It's our
That's right. Yeah. Wow.
So, thank you so much, Wendy. I mean, this has really been engaging and eye-opening.
Engaging.
Yeah. So, social media as the tool, I think it's here to stay. We can't wish it away.
We can't.
We just have to live with it. So, how best can we live with this and utilize social media to become a tool to draw the family closer together, to allow the children imbibe, moral values. What can we do with social media to help us?
One of the things that I usually say, I like what Pastor Comfort said earlier about the family values. In fact, when you get into the academy, the first thing I do is that if you don't have a family values, you can create one. Now, creating a family value is not what you say with your mouth.
Exactly.
Documented. So every home that have gone through my coaching have a family value printed, framed somewhere in the home. And then beyond that is embedded in your process. You can't be saying one thing and doing another thing. Being able to affect the world, impact the world is part of our family values. Our foster daughter who has been raised she's a special needs coach for parents of special needs. She's a psychologist as well. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that when you give your children standards, values, when it's time to make decisions, they will make decisions from their values. Exactly. I'll give a very vivid example with myself.
Oh, lovely.
I got into the university very, very, very young, and something I don't advise anymore anyway. That's my doing. It was a bragging right for my dad. And when I got into university, I was barely 16, and I got into university, I was just everywhere, and I met this set of girls. They were lovely, bubbling. I loved to be in their circle. I was like, oh, wow, nice looking girls, full of life. I got into that circle. 2 weeks later, I asked myself what I was doing there. There was no conversation about books. So I was reading these books. There were too many books in the house and all of that. So there was no conversation about books. There was no conversation about, anything, that as it regards education and all that. I just wanted to live life, go to party and all of that. I needed to make a decision. My parents were not there. I had to take a decision to leave that circle, even though it was something that was exciting somewhere that was giving me dopamine. But I left. And when I did, impacted positively for me. My parents were not there to actually be able to help me. Now, one of the things that we can do is to help our children build values. And then beyond that, let's teach our children what to do online. If you have what to do on the social media circle, you won't have time to do the other things.
Yeah, exactly.
So, for instance, my daughter cooks. She cooks very well. She's 11, and she cooks very, very well. As in, she's already thinking of doing cooking blogging, and our son already does graphics. He's 11. So I want to get them to have skills. By the time you get into the social media space, you don't have time for all the other things. And so that's why I said, let's raise tech-savvy children instead of social media savvy children, which makes it a lot more easier for us.
Yes. Brilliant. Awesome. Absolutely brilliant.
Awesome.
Raise tech-savvy children,
not social
media children. This is the conversation, and we have been speaking with Wendy Ologe. She is phenomenal. Send in your questions. If you have anything you want to ask her, please go on our social media handles right now, on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, everywhere. Just send in your questions, and they will take your questions. We'll go on a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about peer pressure, not as you know it, but in the way it is today on social media. This is the conversation. I'll see you in a moment.
It's a National Assembly that can make laws. It's a National Assembly that can amend the Constitution. It's a National Assembly that can set up a referendum or whatever process to review the recommendations from the 2014 Compact. So those are the things we need to talk about. And so for young people or any group that's organized, including the church, is to begin to put pressure on elected members of the National Assembly who represent constituents and say, are you going to watch as this country is engulfed for selfish reasons? And those are the things that we need to come out and speak about.
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds across the world, and leaves you better than ever. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. on the social media platforms showing on the screen.
Fish don't take swimming lessons and birds don't go to flight school. It's something that is wired inside of them. It's hot-wired inside of them. We shouldn't just expect that our talents are necessary for the stage, the glitz, the glam, lights, camera, action. It's being and giving the very best of yourself in every environment you find yourself.
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds across the world, and leaves you better than ever. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. on the social media platforms showing on the screen.
Forget what the police bosses would always say, that bail is free. Bail is not free in this country. If the police get you and you don't cough up money, you end up in the court. And once you get to the court, remanded in prison first. As long as you have money, you have power, and the media is not spotlighting your case, you don't get to experience the full weight of the law. If it ever catches up with you, it's just mild. But the beginning of solving the problem is awareness. It may take 10 years, before somebody comes up and says, oh, that story that was done 10 years ago. But at least there is awareness that so much happens in our police cells, in our prisons. And then someday we can start talking about that interior minister, that president who will have the political will to bring the changes.
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds across the world, and leaves you better than ever. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. on the social media platforms showing on the screen.
The most engaging time with Wendy Ologe. We've been talking about parenting responsibilities, restoring family values, and moral decency in the social media era. Now, I know, Pastor Comfort, there's a question that's coming for Wendy.
Yes, we have a question from Titi Gold. She's asking, how much screen time should a child be given? I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer that question, because when I was raising children, all we had was the TV. So they were restricted to 1 hour of TV weekday, and they had at least 3 hours weekends. Okay. And we kept to that strictly. And even they knew, and they would also help us keep the time. Mommy, isn't it? We still have 5 minutes left. I said, yes, you have 5 minutes left. So during the social media era, they were already all grown up. So I think I'll pass the baton to Wendy to say, okay, so how much screen time should a child be given? Even though I know that also depends on the age, range, but yeah, so maybe you could give us a guide.
Yes, exactly. So there is an age, to it. There are age guides, professionally, established. In fact, professionally, a child that is less than 18 months shouldn't have anything to do with screen.
Wow.
Yes. So you shouldn't even have your child on the screen if that child is less than 18 months. And, but what you find today is, parents putting their children on laptop. So screen is screen. Laptop, phone, tablets, TV, they're all screens. All right. So you need to understand that there are effects. Now that affects the developmental, system of the child below 18, because at that time the child is supposed to be learning language, supposed to be learning, their environment and all of that. Yes, but creativity. But you rob them off all of that, and then we're constantly now giving them a dopamine called the screen, and of course the dopamine is a hormone in the brain that just gets you charged up when you get excited. So that's what we're doing. And then for children who are even 2 and above, I think between 2 and 6 or thereabout, they shouldn't even have more than 1 hour on their screen. Now, interestingly, when our children were started school days, we never had screen time during the day, the school times. Screen times were only on weekend. Now, this is it was a personal decision. 1 hour a day is good enough. For your child that is more than 10, 2 hours a day, to 3 hours, depending on how you want to regulate it, is good enough. But if you can, raise a child who can create a social roadmap for your Gen Z. One of the things that is going to happen to your Gen Z is that there's something called distractibility. We're going to be managing children who are now distracted. It's already started happening. So children who can't, who cannot put things, who cannot have control, so there's now distractibility management as a course, which I have studied. All right. So I tell people, I say, if you don't listen to me now, I'm going to take your money in years to come because your children are going to be distracted and I will be there to actually get paid. All right. So these are some of the things that are going to accumulate to all of that in times to come. So if we can help our children to actually look at how they can work out, the system of control right now, it makes it a lot more easier. And then a lot of children in this generation, we also have a lot of suicide. We also have a lot of social issues. It's all because we are not creating a roadmap, a social roadmap for these children, because the world is now indoors. We're not deliberately creating them. And I was saying in a course that we created in the academy, and I said, before now, you don't need to teach a parent to create a social roadmap, but now you need to, because the environment doesn't even allow your children go out to go and play. But that play your children they are playing is key to their system. So you need to make your children play. Allow them pray. Allow them create. Allow them do things. Get books for them. You don't need the screen.
That's how we
That's
grew
the
up.
truth.
Yes.
You don't need the screen. See, nobody, the life skills you need to learn, your child needs to learn is not on the screen. They are never on the screen. So all those you tell people, they say, oh, my child is learning how to speak well because they are watching. That's not true. That's actually not true. Your child learn all of that by social interaction. So you need to actually create a system that gives them the ability to socially interact and not just put them in front of a screen. All right. So the screen doesn't necessarily teach a child. So we need to actually get that right. About the screen.
Yeah, I quite agree with that, because I think it pushes them away from reality. Everything is touch button. But you see, reality is just like when you cook, you don't put rice on the fire and eat it. No, sit down there and wait for it to cook. So that period of waiting is what this generation is missing out on.
I agree. Absolutely. The period of waiting. So there's a skill, delayed gratification is a lacking skill in this generation. Someone was asking me recently that why do I buy things and don't allow my children eat in the car? I say it's an ability for them to learn to delay gratification. So I go to a shop and I buy something. Must you eat it in the car? Why? You can wait. So we need to teach our children how to wait. We need to teach them how to get into a restaurant and wait on a queue. They need to learn to wait. So we can't continuously buy the wait time for them, which is one of the reasons why we're taking our children from grade 4 to secondary school. We're taking them from grade 5 to secondary school because we don't want them to wait. Someone asked me recently why the twins are doing grade 6. I said, well, my father didn't understand. And I'm not about to make the same mistake. He affected me, as a child. It did affect me. So we need to actually learn to wait. There's no hurry, really. And the stability, the emotional stability your child has is what is going to carry them, over.
And it comes with maturity.
And it comes with a lot of maturity. So that's it. So there's a place. That there's a role the age plays. My father-in-law had 4 children, and 4 of them went to school at 12. So recently I had a conversation with him, and I was like, Prof, so what's your reason? And he said to me that he schooled abroad and he never saw any child jump a class. So why on earth does he want his children? And funny enough, all his children were very smart. So, but yet that wasn't a criteria. So your child being smart is not even a criteria to speed up their life. Life is about process, and we need to actually teach our children that as well.
Yes, true. True.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Listening to Wendy and she was talking about screen time, I was like, oh my goodness, guilty. I think I'm going to come and enroll at the Intentional Parent Academy because I am guilty as charged. We have another question. We'll take another quick question and then we'll go on to the issue of peer pressure. And I think this is really important because peer pressure has changed from the way we used to know it. When we were in primary school, it was either someone was pulling your hair or waiting for you in the corner. Now it's all online.
I know.
So we're going to talk about peer pressure in a bit. But before we go on, we have a question, from Kate Uju Opara, and she says, how can I balance a 9-to-5 job, at the same time being intentional to raise my children in this 21st century? The reality of all of us.
I know, right? So that's where the place of knowledge now comes in. When we talk about being available, people say, how can I manage being available and not being available and all of that? The truth remains that love equal to presence for your child. No matter how you want to interpret it, it's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But I tell you, that's what it is. A child would never tell you that they feel down and that they have issues emotionally. They will tell you, Mommy, can I play with you? That's their way of communicating that something has happened to me today.
Yes, and it's you I want to talk
need
to.
it's you I want to just play with. Sometimes when my son comes and say, can we play table soccer? So instead of teaching my son how to play the video game, I taught him how to use the cover of bottles to play table soccer, what we did growing up. And then he enjoys to play. So anytime he comes to me and says, Mommy, can we play table soccer? For me, I feel that that's a time I need to go down and connect. It's difficult, but you need to create a system that can work. Make a plan. One of the things that I would advise is that you create a plan. Create a plan that will help you look at the stages of your child's life and look at when you need to be most available. I was very guilty. I started my career in non-governmental organization, USAID to be precise. And, I did 10 years. So my travels were crazy. All right. And, by the time my children, but I knew that I wouldn't have a 7-year-old or 8-year-old and do that kind of job. So we had a plan from the beginning. As soon as we were beginning to get closer, 7, 8, my husband moved his department at work. He insisted moved from, a particular department that didn't give him time at all to somewhere that he could have time, and then we just started to also build other things in our lives so that we'll be able to create the balance our children would need. Our children, we stopped living with domestic workers when the twins were 7+, and they're about 11 now. Our children make home meals. So I'm going to get home now. My husband is around somewhere, and we're going to get home now and start that into a well-finished food. And then we just cross our legs to do that. So these are some of the things, these are some of the advantages that it gives you. So life is usually about choices that we make. You can create the balance, or you can say, I want to make all the money and then leave the children. Or I want to just balance it. Be able to, just be okay. Like my husband would say, I know where to go and get the money, all the money if I want it now. But you need to balance. I want to be there for my children. So I made the decision. They are tough decisions. There are a lot of things I haven't been able to do in the past 10 years. I'm looking forward to in the next September.
There you go. You delayed self-gratification. There you go.
So that's it.
All right, Wendy. Now, talking about peer pressure, it has moved, not just, it still happens physically, right? But the amount of peer pressure that children or even adults face online is amazing, is mind-blowing. So how do we deal with that? Because sometimes I scroll through Instagram and I'm like, yeah, Susan, your life has not begun. See your mates. And I'm like, okay, so if I feel that way, how do my children feel? So it's not just the children now when you're talking about peer pressure on social media, online. It's also even the parents, depending on the generations, whether we want to admit it or not. So how exactly can we deal with this?
So one of the skills that I usually, talk about when it comes to being, so it takes us back to the value system.
Exactly.
It takes us back to the value system. Now it's a lot, I tell you, and it's not so easy. There's a lot of things happening. You just go online and all that blows on your face and all of that, which is why if you an adult feel that way, so imagine what happens when your child that is 13 is online. So which is why your 13-year-old might not have the capacity to actually deal with what comes with the social media space. So we need to understand that for our children, there's something age will do. And then as you've laid the foundation, you also need to look at the age and then be able to say, okay, this is now, this is then, and all of that, because peer pressure is real, which is why a lot of teenagers are going online, seeing people doing things, and they are just going on to do it. But we just need to build the social media world is like our world. It's just our world in another form. So we need to build it. We need to actually begin to help our children now, because and then also understand the times and the season. The times and the season are, they are different. So we need to do more, which takes us back to where we're coming from. Knowledge. We need to do more for our children.
That's a comfort.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to ask this question.
Okay.
How do parents handling the transition of the different phases of their children's development stages? How do you handle, the transition of their development stages? Okay, you've moved from this toddler stage up until 3, and then they now begin to feel I can wear my pants by myself. Try to, these are the various developmental stages of their lives. How do parents, that moving away from peer pressure, of course, how do parents handle that?
Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't know how to handle those issues, because you find out that you see someone. Okay, so today I was in a session and a particular parent asked me in that session, my daughter said to me, the daughter is 16, if I get pregnant now, what would you do? She said that question got her, that her whole body, said she couldn't think it. She said, Coach, I'm dead. How can my daughter 16, what does she know? In my mind, I had a good laugh. And I said, you're asking that question, what does she know? It will shock you. So because we are also not telling ourselves, we're not being honest with ourselves. So we're not also learning. So for every stage of parenting, there's something that comes with it. There's always a challenge that comes with every stage of parenting. Your toddler can never be spoken to the way you talk to your preschooler. You can't speak to your teenager the way you talk to your younger child. If you do that, you will fail. At some point in parenting, there are 4 stages, there are the importance line and the 4 stages in parenting. When the child is younger, you are the all and all. You, the parent, you are the number one on the run of things. So you have the number one, the parent, you have other adults, you have the peers, and then you now also have the pop culture, which is also a great influence for your children. But do you know that after a while, you, the parent, comes to the 4th floor? Wow. And at the 4th floor, that's where we begin to fight. And without recognizing that we're eventually going to go to the 4th floor. But if you recognize that you're eventually going to go to the 4th floor, what do? Those other adults that were supposed to be in the life of your child, you fill them in with the people you know that are the kind of value that you share, which is why I keep saying, when people say, parenting is all about me, I'm just going to parent alone. You can't really parent alone. Exactly. It takes a village, really. And when I say that it takes a village, I mean that you can create your own village. Don't just go and dump yourself inside any village, right? You can create your own village when it comes to all of that. Yeah. So instead of allowing that vacuum, where the other, because in the run of things, where you come to the 4th floor, it is peer pressure, other adults, pop culture, then parents. And when you get to that, 4th floor, you are now fighting other adults. The question is, who are those other adults that are in your child's life? Because they must be there. There are things your children will never, let me say it today, tell you. It's not because they don't love you. It's not because you're not close to them, but it just feels awkward. But there are things that they can tell those other adults. I give a very vivid example. I have become an other adult for one of my friend's child, and recently they wanted to go for a party. It was a simple party according to what she told her parents, but she couldn't tell her parents the things that were going to happen at that place. She came to me and said, Auntie Wendy, this is what's going to happen. And I was able to guide her through. She ended up not going for that party. But imagine that she didn't have to speak to another adult. She would just tell her parents, we have the party. It's just anything, then they allow them to go for that party and then run the risk. You must appreciate and build people in the life of your children who can help you in the process. As soon as your child hits teenage, the other adult becomes more important than you. My friends will say, I'm very humble. The other adults, please come into the life and help me. So you need to create it. Recently, I was trying to tell my son something, and I looked at it. I was like, okay. And then one of my our family friends told him the same thing, explained it to him, and my son said, "Oh wow, this sounds very how did he say fresh, Abido? and then he's been repeating it every day. It made sense to him because another adult who has influence over his life have been able to say that to him. So we need to get some of this, some of these things right. So that we don't get juggled up when the things hit us really.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
And another thing I wanted to say, in line with what you said, is that each child is unique. And one stage of one child is not equal to the stage of another child.
Yeah.
And I personally think this is where the place of the Holy Spirit in every mother comes to play. He's the teacher. He's the one that knows the child. And then while you're helping the child through the developmental stages, you're also keying in with the Holy Spirit, who knows the child more than you and will teach you
how.
My first daughter had always been a very independent child. I can get it all. I've got it all together, and stuff like that. She just comes to mommy once in a while. And then there was this stage where at any point in time, it was as if that thing I suggest is that thing she will not do. She can bring two clothes, Mom. Which one do you think I should wear?
This one.
No, she'll go back and wear the other one. As a parent, I was getting hurt. I'm like, why bother? One day she came and said, which one? I said, I'm not choosing. Because if I choose one, you will say it's the other one. And then suddenly it's changed again. And at that time, it could have been a very confrontational. And I think at this point, this is where you now begin to see rivalry with parents and children.
Yes.
But then the Holy Spirit just said, step back. So I stepped back. And when she's acting up, like our people say, giving attitude, I pretend as if I don't see her. And I just go about my every day. She's frowning, I'm smiling, until maybe it took about some 18 months for her to come around the bend, and all of a sudden it's smiles, mommy, smiles, mommy. I'm like, oh, thank you, Holy Spirit.
Amazing. Pastor Comfort, it's a good thing that you raised that, because I was just going to ask you. I know that you're raising children that are like in Generation Z.
Yeah.
And you've talked about rivalry, not now between the parent and the child, right? But I know that the first kind of rivalry that we need to deal with is the rivalry between children. Especially if, even if there's just a few months in between them. So how did you raise your children and deal with that? Yeah. Because you have 3 children that are different, and they have their issues and they're clashing at some point or the other. Other times they're lovey and chummy. So how do you deal with that?
Like I said, it goes back to the Holy Spirit. But when it comes to the physical aspect of it, it's like knowing them for themselves. And sometimes you like follow the thread they throw to you. You don't jump in. You wait for them to extend and then you follow that thread. So you're not imposing yourself on them. They feel they have a say, right. So because I said this, mommy did this, so it creates that kind of a connect. Now, with each child, like I say, they're very different. So what you do is, if you do for one, you speak to the other about what you've done. Oh, so what do you think? And what we do is, we're like, okay, Laulu, what do you think we should get Ore for a birthday present? I think we should get this. No, that's not what she likes. How come you know what she likes? I know this is what she likes. Or Ore, what do you think we should get Ayofe? And then it goes like that. Wow. And at the end of the day, instead of rivalry, they're watching out for each other.
Oh, wow.
So that's what one of the techniques we used to raise them up, and they're out of the country, all 3 of them, and they're still watching out for each other till date. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wendy?
I think one thing with sibling rivalry that I have noticed is that we think is nothing.
Wow.
So I have some parents who just, come and say things like, they're just having a fight. They're going to be okay. So we let it. Yeah. So we let it, and it has transcended into a lot of stuff, and then there's a lot of rivalry. That's why we have parents and their siblings that you don't speak
Speak to.
You have cousins that you don't, because they have had issues with your parents and all of that and all of that. All that and all that. In fact, recently, the Holy Spirit led me to start writing on how to resolve sibling rivalry.
Wow.
I come from a home where my father had it tough when it comes to sibling rivalry, something that messed, a lot of things up in their own family. And every time I look back, I'm like, things could have been different.
Yeah.
Only if his parents understood how to resolve each stage of the sibling rivalry. So sibling rivalry is not something you say, when they grow older, they're going to be fine.
No.
They never get to be fine at the end of the day. That's why you have siblings that you can't really talk to, because there are things that have happened that your parents couldn't really nip in the bud. And then they didn't create environment, that could actually do all of that. And I saw my father, if there's nothing my father was able to achieve, I saw him strive to ensure that we had that connection. Five of us, living in different parts of the world, and yet the connection is secular and amazing. It's something you build. It's not something you leave to chance.
Yeah. My husband, Pastor Shola, would always say that sibling rivalry is as old as creation itself.
Oh, yes.
It started with Cain and Abel.
Oh, yes.
So if it can lead to death, it is something you need to
look
attention
at.
to.
I agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow,
Yes.
it has been an amazing time. We're almost done, but we can't wrap this up without talking about nation building, Wendy, because we see that the family is the nucleus, right? And that is where you grow and a community forms and then a nation. So what is the role of the parent, or do we just leave nation building to them leaders, to stop the moral decadence, them leaders, what am I responsible to make sure that, because we live in interesting times in this country, right? So do I have a responsibility towards my country in the way I parent?
Okay, so one of the reasons why I like politics a lot, I'm one of those people that you're going to see one day on the screens and all of that. I love politics. And a lot of people do not know that I love politics. I discuss politics on my table, and I like the way leadership, goes, and good leadership. One of the reasons why I started, I remember that when we were talking, you had asked me, so why did you start this?
Right.
I looked around me and I said, there's something wrong with the system that we have.
Exactly.
And where I am, I cannot change that system. But the Holy Spirit said something to me. You can change the system by raising a better person. And that was where I started from.
Yeah.
And at some point, he said, you can teach other people how to raise better people. If we can raise better people, then we would have a better nation.
Right.
The truth is, the society is a product of the family.
Yes.
Whatever it is that we see around us today
Exactly.
is a product of the people we have raised. Recently, I saw a video where the one of the people in justice, hit someone and all of that. And it got me thinking, these are the people that we have raised. We need to actually raise better people. I like the way Pastor Samadeyemi says it. He said, you can't put leadership, in front without raising the people who would put this leadership, in the system. So you need to even raise better people to think that they are worthy of better people, actually leading them. So the role of parenting in nation building can never be put aside. That there was a study in Iceland recently where the Iceland system noticed that a lot of children were getting into vices, drinking, smoking, drugs. Do you know what they did? They shut down the system and said that any woman who stays home with their children will earn money.
Yes.
And they did it for such a long time, and that curbed all of that. It's recorded that Iceland have the lowest crime rates in the world. It was something that they saw, and they were able to build it. So they paid every woman who agreed to stay at home normal pay. So you don't need to work, no problem. Sit at home, take care of the children, and then we will pay you. And then you decide to actually have a child. So it builds their nation. So there's no nation building really without actually having better families.
Wow.
I quite agree with you, honestly. For me, it's a passion, because anytime I see maybe a politician, and I'm not talking about even the children, I'm talking about full-grown adults misbehaving, displaying themselves on the national stage. The first question I want to ask is, who is his mother?
raised-
Who is her mother?
who
You know,
raised
because
this
it
person?
goes back there,
Mm.
you know. Even though sometimes, you know, our people have a saying that the northerners say, you can, but that means you've given birth to a child, you didn't give birth to the child's character. I don't agree. Because it's the way you raise a child in the morals is where they go beyond that. So for me, it is a passion, because where the woman, it falls back on her to make sure that the family unit is unique and is perfect. It stands as a standard. We find mothers falling short of that expectation. You find them now themselves bending, you know, to certain rules, trying to bend the rules, break the rules, just because I'm going to pay a tutor, you know, to write my child's examination because the child has to have an A. I'm like, no, if that child fails, it just tells you the child is not ready. Repeat. There is nothing wrong with repeating. We have repeated. We didn't die, yet we still got here. It's just telling you the child is not ready. Wait for the child to get it, you know, cheating here. And these are parents. Okay, I don't know about the guys, but it hurts me when I hear a mother paid for a child to get this done. When a mother does that, it hurts. Then what are you teaching your child? Because even in that, it's parenting. And then you want to scold your child tomorrow. Don't do that. What are you telling me not to do when
you have already?
Unfortunately, Pastor Comfort, you know, I was while you were talking, I was just thinking about all of that, and you know, the whole system that we have created.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the people who are paying today were paid for.
Oh wow.
I like to look at that system.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
You know, because
Awesome.
even in my time, there were parents who paid. All right, so it's very okay. It's very okay. It's okay for us to sit down here and say it's just this generation. What did they see? You know, people have said things like the divorce is so much, what is happening and all of that. The system that our parents created is falling apart.
Wow.
And it's a system that we need to undo, which is what my message is about. Good. Yes, it's okay for us to come and say, live hypocritically and say, oh, these systems have been created, it's perfect. It's not. That's why we're still having people pay. They saw their parents pay. On my streets, I know the people, you know, that got paid for growing up. So it's not something that is you know, abstract. We saw it happen in our times. So we are now parents, and we now think it's okay to continue to pay.
Right.
It's just a few parents who didn't. All right. So we just need to. It's a system. Is a whole messy system. And unfortunately for us, modeling is the biggest tool in parenting.
Exactly.
Whether you like it or not, is the biggest tool. So you can say whatever you want to say. It's monkey do, monkey see, monkey do. So your child is going to see and do. So it's okay for you. And then, you know, fathers. I was in church on Sunday in the Living Faith Church, and I was talking, and, you know, one of the teenagers, the question was, I know that my father has a side chick, yet he tells me that it's not okay to be sleeping with men. That was her question. So it's easy for us to come and play the hypocrite card.
Wow.
But I tell you, our children can see. They might not be saying these things to us, but you know the truth, they can see us. Exactly. And they know that what you're saying is not what you're doing. It's okay for you to pick up the phone and you are in the house, and then somebody's calling you and saying, I'm on my way, but you're in the house. Your children can see you. It's not okay to come back in the night the same day and come and preach Jesus. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Because your child is not going to be able to. And then you tell your child, when you lie, you go to hellfire. The child is looking at you. You're not in hellfire yet. So there's nothing wrong with lying.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
So it's
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
We have a question.
This is
we,
hot.
we have a question online, and it's from Miriam Osiri. Miriam is asking, she's saying that how can one apply parenting skills, you know, as a guardian, more so when, you know, there's an existing foundation that's tough to change. You've inherited something you didn't create. So how do
It's
you
a
deal
tough
with
work.
that?
We parented a 16-year-old. Started parenting a 16-year-old who is presently 28. And I tell you, is a tough line. If you decide to go on that lane, then you need to tell yourself that I'm ready to do this. Because when it comes to science, psychology, all of that, a child is formed from 0 to 7 to 10. So the moment the child is 10, the truth is, every other thing you are doing is fire brigade approach.
Oh, wow.
So you need to actually put in a lot of energy. You need to put in a lot of energy to change a lot. It takes a lot to foster a child that you didn't really start parenting from the beginning. So you just need to agree to put in the work. You know, that's it.
And then the grace to follow.
Amen. Amen. It's been an amazing 60 or so minutes. And
Awesome.
Isn't it awesome how time
It's-
runs quickly when you're having fun? We have been speaking with Wendy Ologe, and she's a seasoned parental coach. She's the founder of the Intentional Parent Academy, and she's an author of so many books. The one I love especially is From Yelling to Calm. I need to read that book. And I think you're currently hosting like a no yelling challenge, a 30-day no yelling challenge. A 30-day no yelling challenge. I'm your first student. All right, so we've had a lot of comments on social media. Thank you all for your engagement. A lot of people have been sending in comments. So many people. Margaret Bestman says modeling is the biggest tool in parenting. So true. So true. Thank you. Kate Okpara says that modeling is the best tool to give a child. That is so true. That is what Wendy said. And Amarachi says that there is no nation building without having better and balanced family structures.
Exactly.
Wow. So it all starts with the family. It all starts with the family. And Omolara says that part of growing a child is what? Growing their character too.
Yeah.
Wow. So a child doesn't come with a ready-made character. You need to grow a child and grow their.
It's a prototype, so you need to fit it in.
This parenting job is tougher than I thought. Oh well, that is about all the time we have on the conversation. But before we go, I just need to ask Wendy, do you have any last words for us? Any exhortations? Any do this and don't do this words for us?
What I would say, I'm going to quote from my book, Connect to Correct. Connect to Correct was my very first book. And one of my favorite quotes from that book is parenting is about you. You are the parent, not your child. You have the responsibility, not your child. If something is going wrong, please find a way. It's not your child. Don't blame your child. Take responsibility and begin to walk your journey. Remember, parenting is not an assumed skill. It is a learned skill. If you don't remember anything, remember that today.
Thank you so
just
much.
one last word, Wendy. Tell us a little bit about your Intentional Parenting Academy, and how parents, in case you're interested in, hooking up with Wendy or, enrolling or signing up, tell us about how we can find you.
Okay, so on Facebook, we have a huge community of parents.
70,000.
We have 70,000 parents, yes,
amazing.
on our community called the Intentional Parents. The Intentional Parents has been recognized twice as one of the groups on Facebook that are building great content globally. And, last year we were mentioned by Mark himself, saying that we were one of the people building global, structure in the industry of, creating meaningful communities. So you can join our communities called the Intentional Parent. You can find us on any social media handle, the Intentional Parents or Wendy Ologe. One of the things that I would say about the Intentional Parents Academy is that it's a big deal. We take parenting as big business. We look at parenting and look at it and say, this is big business,
yes.
And I tell the parents in the academy, and when they say, but I don't really have a lot of time to say, just say to yourself, I have time to parent my children because it is my job. And when you begin to say that constantly, there's something about self-fulfilling prophecies, and then it begins to come real, and you're able to actually do a lot of that. So the academy just helps you walk through your journey from day one to, wherever it is that you're going. It's an 18-year journey that needs hand-holding, from time to time. And hey, you need help, and we all need help. No matter where you are on your journey, you can actually improve on whatever it is that you have done. Yes, so that's
Yeah.
about it.
That's
No
lovely.
matter where
That's
you are on
lovely.
your journey, you
Mm.
can actually improve. Any last words, Pastor Comfort?
Yes. No matter how little it is, quality time. Spend quality time with your children. Whether you're busy, whether or you have a lot of time on your hands, quality time. Drop it all. Make that child feel like the most important thing in the world at that moment. Even if it's just 5 minutes, they value it. It means a lot and it goes a long way. So it's not the number of hours, it's the quality. So please, parents, spend quality time with your children. That's my last word.
Oh, wow. It's been an amazing 1 hour. We wish we could go on and on, but we have some parenting to go back and do. So we'll call it a night right now on The Conversation. We have been talking about parenting responsibilities, restoring family values, and moral decadence in the social media era. Thank you for sticking with us, and we
Thank
hope
you.
that you'll tune in again soon. God bless you. Share the link. Tell someone to watch the videos, contact Wendy, and go become an awesome parent. Have a good evening.
There's a lot of spontaneity going on. And so being able to sit down and be selective about what qualifies for the investment of your time and your energy becomes beautiful. I mean, to ignore that will be a self-initiated attack against ourselves. So I tell people, you got to plan. You got to see the big picture now.
The Conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds across the world, and leaves you better than ever. Every Thursday at 6 p.m. on the social media platforms showing on the screen.